Over my gardening journey, I have grown in a lot of different places and a lot of different methods. First garden I ever had was a small hydroponic garden inside my house, and then I grew in a backyard. I've grown in a small front yard. I've grown in raised beds, hydroponics, in ground, but there's a method that I haven't tried. Kevin and Spears are here from Epic Gardening, where it's my goal to help you grow a greener thumb. And today I'm bringing you a special collaboration with one of my personal gardening heroes, Charles Dowding. Last year, I went to the UK and I was fortunate enough to tour his market garden, Homeacres, where he uses the no-dig method to grow all of the produce in that gorgeous backyard. And now I've done a little bit of in-ground gardening, but I've never done a true no-dig bed. So in today's video, both Charles and I are going to consult each other and compare notes on building out a new no-dig bed. So without further ado, cultivate that like button for an epic across the pond collaboration, and let's get into a call with Charles. Hey, Charles.
Hey, Kevin. Hello. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again. It's been almost a year since I was at your house.
It is almost a year to the day, and it's almost equally dark here now. This
Yeah.
is late. Well, no, it's mid-afternoon here actually in 20th November today, and
Okay.
It gets dark at about 4:30.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see the compost bins back there. I can see the greenhouse. Things are looking pretty good.
So yeah, this is a nice opportunity, isn't it, to meet up and have a go and do something together.
Definitely. And a lot has changed on my side since, I mean, I know when I was there last time, I was telling you I was growing in a small front yard and in raised beds. And then now I'm sitting here, you can't see it, but I'm growing on almost a third of an acre of land now. Not growing on it because the land needs a lot of work. And I think that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, great. Yeah, well, this is fascinating for me because obviously you're in such a different climate, such a different soil, and we'll be using similar methods, but with some of the materials perhaps slightly different, and that's what we'll show the viewers in this video.
Yeah. I think the thing that I'm curious about, and I think a lot of my viewers would be curious about, is your style. Can it work anywhere? And there's not very much of a different climate than San Diego compared to the UK, right? And so I'm curious to see if it'll work.
Cool. Well, I've been getting very nice feedback recently from pretty much all over the world, actually.
Yep.
Like I had a guy from Bangalore in southern India who put a comment on YouTube, and he said, "Yeah, just thanks to these videos, I've started a market garden, and it's going really well. And now I'm teaching people around here. So yeah, word's getting out. It's exciting."
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, I'm excited to try it because I think we talked when I was there, and I said I was doing a modified version of your method, and I think this time I'd like to go full in on the Charles Dowding method.
Okay. So your soil, you were saying earlier is quite hard, is it?
It's pretty hard. I did a soil test. I did a very simple soil test where you just put a bunch of soil in a mason jar and shake it and let it settle. And as far as the layers, I mean, it looks to be almost entirely clay particles, very little bit of silt, not a lot of sand. And so it's quite hard. It hasn't been grown on in a very long time. I think the area itself used to be an olive orchard like dozens of years ago.
Okay.
As far as I know, it's just been fallow, sort of patchy grass before I moved into this place.
And you are very dry, aren't you? It's hardly rained since March, you said.
Yeah, the first rain we got since spring was maybe two weeks ago, I would say. So not a lot of rain here.
That's so different.
Yeah.
But what it sounds to me like, although it's hard, not necessarily compact, the word compact, I think gets a bit overused. So It could be that you water it thoroughly, and although it's clay, it's probably low in organic matter because it hasn't had much growing in it, and it's been nothing added.
Yeah.
But just by adding organic matter on top, I have a feeling that things are going to come good, and maintaining moisture in whatever way is possible for you.
Yeah.
And that will allow this clay to come to life. And clay's great. Clay holds moisture, clay holds nutrients. So I would say clay's better than sand, put it that way.
For sure. Yeah. So would you modify your method at all for my style of soil, or what would you do?
I wouldn't modify the method. I would modify the materials according to what's available. I talk about compost a lot and use that. If you could buy some compost, I'd still recommend that in your situation. Results will vary according to exactly what compost you get.
Sure. I've got, there's a couple sources I've got. I could, of course, buy it at a local nursery or something like that. There's the landfill that's sort of the central landfill for San Diego does a pretty good job composting. And they offer it for free if you go haul it. And I have a friend who runs a market garden and she's used that compost and wood chips to rehabilitate her soil, which is almost the exact same as my soil. And so that was my first bet, would be to go for the free compost that seems to be pretty good. It worked for someone here.
But the other question about it is how fresh it is. So like if you go and get it, or if they dig it out of a pile, is it still steaming?
Yeah, it's still hot is the thing. So they're always turning it over. And so that's another challenge, I think.
No, that will be actually, because ideally what I would have done, say for something we're going to do now, would be to get it delivered 3 months ago, and that it finishes decomposing in its pile.
Yeah.
Then you use it, and it's a lot easier to get nice results that way.
Yeah.
And when you were saying about it being fine, when it's still steaming and hot and you fill a bed with it, it can settle into quite a dense mass, and then it's difficult to get water in there.
Yep. I tested that out in one of the raised beds. I used that exact compost. I actually mixed in with some extra laying around potting mix that I had to sort of lighten it up a bit, and it still compacted a lot, and it still was composting in place. And so it couldn't be used solely, I don't think.
I think for this bed that we're going to make together, so to speak, I'd recommend using your other compost sources, that's ready. But I would still take delivery of, and it'd be fascinating for people to see it being delivered and it all steaming. Some of this municipal compost, or however you call it, for future use, and because that will stand you well next spring. You could make loads of new beds. Yeah,
I think what's going to be nice is over the course of maybe a couple times a week, I can always just drive up there, because again, it's free if you live in San Diego, and so I can just haul truckloads of it and store it over the winter.
Yeah, in terms of size of bed as well. I mean, I don't know. 8 by 4 foot, or sure. You're thinking bigger? It could be any size, really.
8 by 4. You know what I like is maybe if we did one kind of the size of in your side yard next to that shed where you had the peach tree, I think.
Yeah, there's no garden.
Something like that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's about 4 by 8 feet.
Sure. Yeah, that's perfect.
It's amazing actually how much you can grow in a bed that of that size. Not huge. And that might need half a ton for a bed of that size.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can get that.
Should we organize a bit of planting for you? Like you can pop in.
Yeah. So, what do you think if you were, let's say you were me and it was your land? Would you be thinking cover cropping that first time, or would you be trying to plant out with something that you would be able to harvest?
No, I would go for vegetables.
Okay.
For all this time and expense, I don't see any need to cover crop.
Okay.
And also in your climate, if you're not growing, if you're trying to cover crop, you need moisture, don't you? It's going to be quite an expensive way to add fertility to cover crop. Yeah. But sown it and watered it and blah blah blah. So I would just leave the beds until you're ready to go, and also with this cheap compost that you can get, basically, it's just the cost of haulage. Just wait until you're ready to go in the spring, or in your case, late winter. Almost now. Yeah. So almost anything. Just fill them as you need them, really, and then crack on. That's been fantastic having a chat with you. It's so lovely to connect again. And I look forward to...
Yeah, I'm excited. I've got a lot of work to do over the next 10 days, so I'm going to get to it. And I'll see you back here in 10 days, and we'll compare beds.
Brilliant. Look forward to that.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
As you can see, I use plenty of different methods for growing my own food, from these raised beds that you see here to this vertical system, but I haven't really experimented with a full no-dig garden. I've usually opted to till the ground once and then never till it again, whereas this time I'm gonna go full Charles Dowding method. But before I do that, right back there, what I wanna do is show you some of the unique challenges to growing in my area, which leads me to slightly adapt both the materials and the approach. So the first issue that I have on my property is this nasty weed right here. This is called Bermuda grass, and as you can see, it is pretty gnarly. And just look at this right here. You think this is just laying on top of the ground. It's not. It's in fact embedded within, and at each junction point right here, the rhizome, which is this underground stem, can throw out roots. And so it's very difficult to get rid of because it creeps across the surface and the roots are quite deep. So as you can see, they kind of form in these clumps. Take a look at that. And then they throw these out and start to root almost much like a strawberry runner would. So this is a big weed problem for me. And even if you do this, you come in and you rip it out like that, you cut it out, it will come right back. And so that's one problem. The next problem is this soil is quite hard, which leads me typically to think, okay, well, till it once and never till it again, but we're not gonna do that this time. So what I'm gonna do is show you my cardboard graveyard And what we're gonna do then is cover this up. I've been collecting cardboard since I moved in, both from myself and from neighbors. So I've amassed quite a collection here, and the reason we're gonna use it is we're gonna probably double layer the ground after we clear and level out that space to smother out that Bermuda grass. And it's not going to keep it gone forever, so we'll still need to weed here and there, but at least for the purposes of the snow dig bed, it will keep it out of the actual bed. So we're gonna select some cardboard here, we'll bring it out to the front and clear it out, and then we'll lay our soil mix, our compost mix right on top. We do not need much to get this no dig bed off the ground. All I have here are some simple garden tools, some cardboard, and a mixture of compost, which I'll talk about in a second. The first thing I'm gonna do is roughly measure out where the bed will be. I'm gonna go with a 4 foot wide by 8 foot long bed. 4 feet, nice to reach into from both sides. 8 foot, just a good workable amount of space to grow in. So let's measure that out real quick. Next up, I'll take this bow rake. There's already some wood chips on the surface, which I'd like to remove, just so I can kind of see what weed pressure I'm working with. So I'll move that out of the way. We'll take a look at the weeds, and then we're gonna cover them up. So you can see in the area we've cleared out, and there still are a few chips left to clear, but we do have some pretty nasty patches of this Bermuda grass. Now, one thing you could do, although I'm not going to do it with this patch, I'll just demonstrate right here, is you could take a saw, that's my preferred method, and come in. This is very much a matting style creeping weed. And so if you come in like this and just slice underneath, you can saw off entire chunks very efficiently. Now, you know, one of the things that Charles sort of goes by is don't cut it out, instead starve it out. And so if you cut it, you may induce more growth down here. So what I'm gonna do with the rest of this section, some of this stuff over here, for example, is I'm just gonna smother it and see what happens. This cardboard that I'm using here has been stripped of all the metal, all the tape product. It's just pure cardboard. And what I wanna do is lay it over this bed with as few seams as possible. You'll notice these little sections right here where there are some gapping. You'll see, especially a rhizomatic style weed, want to come out. And so if I can, I will overlap those. So what I'll do is just match it up to the edge here. We'll lay one down, and I'm gonna offset it just slightly. We'll lay another right there and keep on going. Next up, I have my compost. This is really dealer's choice. It depends on where you live. You want to get the best stuff you can get based on where you live. So I have some that I got from the local municipality. Unfortunately, it is quite fine in texture and it's quite hot. It's not really well broken down. So I've mixed it in with some bagged compost that I purchased from the store. I have two different types in here. One of them is a mushroom compost, which is the remains from mushroom farms, all of that substrate that they compost down. And the other one is a land and sea mixture with lobster shells and such, chicken manure and the like. So a lot of different blended mixtures, but again, it's gonna be local to your area and the best stuff that you can possibly find. So what I wanna do now is mix it up a little bit and apply it to our new bed. Okay, in we go. Let's go right in the middle. You can spread it out from there. That's what we want to see. Beautiful, rich compost. With the bed more or less formed, I am very afraid of my Bermuda grass coming. Plus I like that bed to be nice and tidy, so I'm gonna apply a couple inches of mulch additionally around the bed just to see if we can smother it a little bit more. This is just a mixture of pine needles, chopped pine, and some more different types of wood chips that I picked up from around the property. Okay, let's apply it. It's really that simple to set up a no-dig bed. As the name implies, the effort is quite low. You just have to cover up the soil. I chose cardboard. There are certainly other methods that you can choose. You mix up some high-quality compost or really whatever is the best soil medium that you can get your hands on to put on top and form the bed. I added some mulch around the side just to make sure that I had some more weed suppression, and I'm just gonna water it in. We'll see you tomorrow for planting this in. Back as the day sets again to plant in the no-dig bed. I'm really excited. I've selected some simple leafy greens. We have a couple kales as well as some cabbage varieties that we're going to be putting in here. Now, it's really just that simple. We have all of our compost, we've formed the bed, it's just time to plant it up, so let's get to it. We're not going to get fancy with this planting here. We're just going to pop our transplants out and put them in much as you would in a raised bed. I know that Charles does it a little bit differently with the classic row crop design. As a small space gardener who's learning to grow in larger areas myself, I'm still a bit partial to a more dense planting. So we'll try to do something like that here and see how we go. I'm gonna go with lettuce first, in at the corner, somewhere around 4 per square foot here. Just nestling it in to this compost mixture. Now the thing that's interesting, and I know Charles likes to mulch just with more compost, but he also gets quite a bit more rainfall than I do. We actually spoke a couple days ago and we were sharing our growing conditions over the email, and it seems like he's already gotten an inch of rain. Now for me to get an inch of rain, that may not even happen before the end of this year, and so I may start to apply an additional layer of mulch on top of this compost mixture, because I really, really want to make sure that this new no-dig bed doesn't dry out, especially with these water-sensitive leafy greens. You know, if this dries out, these lettuce can die quite fast. So we're planted out, but I'm going to apply some mulch like I mentioned earlier. And I'm really curious what Charles has to say about this later on in the video, because I know his typical method, if I'm not mistaken, is to apply compost directly on top and no mulch, no true mulch. Compost certainly can be a type of mulch. But what I'm going to do, because I don't get that much rainfall, I'd like a lighter colored mulch that will really help keep this mixture moist. So I've gone with a shredded straw product here. It's called garden straw, but really any sort of shredded straw will do. I'm going to apply about 2 inches to the surface of this bed. You can see the appearance is quite different already, and you know, hopefully this method gets the almighty Charles Dowding approval. But this is just my adaptation to my unique climate, you know? Not getting a lot of rain is a benefit in some sense, where I can grow many things that other gardeners cannot grow. Whereas if I got more rain, I wouldn't have to do this type of thing. I would be able to mulch a little bit less perhaps. I would be able to water a little bit less, pay a little bit less for my water bill. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and apply mulch and see what we think. Well, there we have it, the first no-dig bed here at the Epic Homestead, planted out with some slight modifications or adaptations to the method. I'm gonna water this in, and then I wanna check in with Charles and see how he's doing on his no-dig bed.
Homemakers, 21st November, late in the autumn, and we're going to make a new bed here, roughly 4 by 8 feet. You'll see the process, and it's going to be half on mown grass. We've been mowing for about 8 years, and this is what it looked like before. So this is Homemakers at the beginning. There's perennial weeds here like thistles and nettles and some couch grass, buttercups, dandelions, a dock or two. So that'll be interesting to compare how this all pans out, and a bit of rubbish to remove, temporary wooden sides there'll be, and I'll see you here in about 10 days and we can compare this with what Kevin has done in San Diego, California, his no-dig bed there.
Kevin here, coming back in. What I wanted to do as we watch Charles build his no-dig bed, I want to compare and contrast the way that I approached it versus the way that Charles approached it. And I'll have to be honest with you, watching his method, I already have seen some adaptations and mistakes that I made not a little bit ago as you just watched me build my bed. So the first thing that he's doing here is just clearing out the weeds. A scythe will make short work of those tall grasses. The spade again will cut through those woodier chunks. And then, lo and behold, he is digging out one large chunk of woody weeds. This is a bramble here. And what you can do is just cut it up and compost it out. It'll still make its way back in, but if you had left that in that section, it would have been a bit terrible for the future of that corner of the bed. So it did come out. Now, the first big difference, and something I really like about Charles' approach here, is he uses some sides and he cuts them to the dimensions of the bed, so he has a bit of a frame as he's forming the bed up. I really like that, and you'll see why in just a second. Cardboard, it looks like we're more or less on the same page here. 2 layers of cardboard overlapping so that those weeds don't creep through these little cracks in the cardboard. But the subtle change, the nuance that makes all the difference, I think, in Charles's method is that he goes over the edges of the bed by about 12 to 18 inches or so. And that's because he doesn't want the creeping weeds to come right around the edge of the bed and go straight up into that fresh compost mixture, which you'll see him use in a second. So just using some old stones here to really hold down the exterior edges of the cardboard to keep that smother in place. Finally, a measuring check to make sure that he does have the 4 foot by 8 foot dimensions for his bed, and then it's on to the compost. And this is the first part of where we differ because we don't have the same ingredients. Of course, Charles has spent over 40 years perfecting his method for making this quality of compost, which is fantastic quality, in just 4 months. I don't have my composting systems up to that scale yet, nor do I have the skill set really to make it at that level. And so what I had to do was use local compost from the local municipality, as well as some bag stuff that I had on hand because I just didn't have enough material to fill out this entire bed. But that's okay. If you're building it at home, you would want to do the same thing. Source the best stuff that you possibly can. So here you really see why it's so important to have those framing edges around, because you get this really nice and tidy looking bed. It's perfectly even. And then you get to do something that I, again, didn't do in the formation of my bed. I formed my bed by hand, by mounding the soil and the compost up. But what Charles is able to do here is he can add one final layer, and then he can do something that most people recommend actually not doing, and that would be to compact and tamp down the bed. Now, in conventional wisdom, a lot of people say don't do this, but in this particular case, it makes a lot of sense, and you certainly can't argue with Charles's results. He has one of the most productive market gardens with the least work that I've personally seen in my actual life. And so you can see he's not afraid to even step and tamp it down with his feet. It really isn't as big of a deal as many people would make you believe. And after one final little leveling, he has a perfectly formed bed. Eventually those sides will come off, and it's really well compacted, but it's not overly compacted. Remember, the ingredients that you're putting in, it's nice and loose. You'll still have good drainage. You'll certainly have a lot of organic matter, and you're in a really good spot to plant it out. Now, on Charles's version of this video, he will talk a little bit about his planting methodology, some of the tools he uses, but for now, what we're going to do is wrap it up with our Zoom call to catch up.
Hey, Kevin. Nice
Hey,
to
Charles.
see you.
Yeah, you too. It's dark over there.
Well, yeah, and it's 12 days since we spoke. 2nd of December today. And
Right,
we've
right,
both
exactly.
busy.
Yeah, it seems like you've been. I certainly have been too. I hope. I'm curious to see, what we did differently in our buildings of our no dig beds, and I think you'll see in mine. I was really worried about the Bermuda grass, and then I took a tip from you where instead of sawing it out and digging it out of the ground in that area and then laying down the cardboard, I decided to just go with what you do, it seems, and just sort of lay it down and smother instead of trying to cut it out. And so that was one of the first things that I did. And I saw you were digging you were putting your new bed in a sort of a side section of the garden, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I did do a bit of digging. I had to dig out some roots of brambles or blackberries because any woody roots I'll dig out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But no weeds, right?
Yeah, and I ran my cardboard around the edge of the bed. I wasn't sure if I'd mentioned that to you for your Bermuda grass.
Yeah, I didn't. I think I did a 4 foot by 8 foot bed, and I just did the cardboard exactly in those dimensions. And then I decided to mulch extra around the edges. And so I think I already noticed what's probably going to end up happening is the Bermuda will crawl from underneath and then will wrap around and come through.
It might actually. You could still slot some cardboard underneath that mulch you've got around the edge.
Yeah.
It might be worth doing that.
Yeah.
You can't leave that grass an inch. So.
Would you just wrap it? You wouldn't wrap it up at all, or would you?
No, no, I think it's better. Actually, that doesn't make much difference.
Okay. Okay.
Just to run it along, so
Okay.
it's completely underneath the
Yeah,
mulch.
I can clear the mulch back out and put another maybe what, a foot or so exterior.
Let me see, foot. Yeah, a good foot, 18 inches.
Okay. Yeah, just to give it some extra clearance so that if the weeds do come up, they come up a foot and a half outside of the bed.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. I should have done that. Learning always.
I mean, we planted the bed up actually, and it was 10 days ago now. So, of course, we are in the climate we have at the moment. Nothing much has grown, but we'll see.
Right. Yeah. I think one thing I did that, again, it's a different method to yours, is I went with a straw mulch over the top of the bed because for me, I was really worried. I know we talked over email and you had already gotten almost an inch of rain, and I
Mm.
don't think there's a chance we'll even get 1 inch before the end of the year. We'll see. And so I decided to put, instead of more and more compost, I went with a light colored sort of straw mulch to see if that would help keep it in a little bit more. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. I mean, that's why it's so fascinating, actually, and ongoing. We need to swap notes about this.
Yeah,
See how
yeah,
they grow.
yeah. It would be amazing if we could somehow teleport to different climates and check things all of the time. What should I expect over the next, let's say, year as I leave that cardboard and that bed in place? How fast will that cardboard go away? How fast would I see that hard clay soil start to improve over time?
The cardboard, if it stays moist, which I'm hoping it will, because you'll just keep your plants watered a bit at least, and you thoroughly wetted. Did you
Hmm.
before?
So what I did is, maybe I made another mistake then. What I did is I laid the cardboard down. I did a double layer again because I was afraid of the Bermuda. And
Mhm.
then for a while, for like a day or two, I just heavily wet the compost I put on top, and it was already moist. And so
Okay.
I think the idea was just for it to drain through.
That'll
I,
be fine. Yeah, it
okay.
will.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, the cardboard's damp. I wouldn't give it much more than 2.5 months, 10 weeks, maybe 12
Wow.
before
Okay.
it
Yeah.
softens, and the grass will start to grow through, and then
Yeah.
you'll be pulling but some Bermuda grass. I've had people on YouTube comments saying with Bermuda grass saying they have got rid of it
Mm,
by repeat pulling, but it doesn't just happen. And what we call crab or couch grass here, that same story, but
yeah.
I think yours is more because so it's just persistence, Kevin. It's like
Yeah,
you figure.
yeah. I've heard the same. I've heard that, to get rid of it completely across
Yeah,
maybe my whole property would be a fantasy, but for certain areas, if you continually discourage it by pulling and smothering, eventually it just sort of gives up on that area and tends to go somewhere else.
I mean, I would look even actually at getting that cardboard even further extended, or if you've got two or three beds together there,
Hmm.
like a kind of easier area really, because if you've got only one bed, you've got a lot of perimeter where it can be coming in.
Yeah.
And so any area you make, I would keep it more or less square so that because that reduces the edge.
How often are you sowing some sort of cover crop on top? I know we're talking about this for World Soil Day. Are you doing that somewhat often in the winter, or are you sort of growing through?
Well, no, not with our winters because, like now our day temperatures are low 40s
Mm,
on average and nothing much is growing.
yeah.
So it's a waste of seed basically to sow a cover
Yeah.
crop at this time of year. And
Yeah.
I feel you're just better off with the compost mulch basically. The mulch is the cover. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And then
Sure.
that's ready at any time. Because the other thing with damp climates is if you have a cover crop, that can build up slugs and
Mm.
pests hiding in there. So it's not all roses with cover crops. And
Yeah, makes sense. It's
yeah.
interesting because, I'm sure you probably get a lot of questions about the slugs and the snails, and I get a lot of questions as well, but it's just not a pest I ever have to deal with because it's never
Yeah,
it's never damp enough really for them to thrive. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, this is like I said in the video, it's my first true no dig bed. And I suppose now that we've chatted, there's some adjustments that I would still make going forward. I like the way that you did it where you formed the bed with the wood. I didn't do it that way. I formed it just by hand. But I think that's nice because you could compact it, which is a little smarter. So I think I'm going to do that next time. Yeah. Well, hey, I'm
well,
excited and,
how are we?
Grateful to participate in this with you. Excited and a very timely release on World Soil Day.
Yeah, me too, Kevin. And I couldn't agree more. And well done, Food and Agriculture Organisation, for stimulating us to do this by having their soil day. So let it be good.
Alrighty, well, we'll keep in touch. Hopefully we can compare notes sometime this coming spring. And yeah, thank you so much, Charles.
Right, good. Bye-bye.
Right. See ya.
As you can see, even in trying to do the same method, we had some adaptations for our unique climates, our growing conditions, the materials we had on hand, and even, at least in my case, our experience. You know, Charles has been doing this for quite some time. I remember in one of his recent videos, he said it's taken him 40 years to learn how to make this amazing compost that he uses as his mulch and his organic amendment in just 4 months. And so I don't have that much time under my belt, and so I'm always making small mistakes here and there, sometimes large mistakes, and it's so great to bring this video to you and show you how I'm learning through Charles, and hopefully how you all can learn through both of us on how to make a more productive garden. So thank you so much for watching, and I want to say thank you to everyone who's come into the epic gardening world this year. It has been a wild year. It really has. In the world of gardening, it seems like things have only been good, and I know that's not the case for most of us watching this video. So I wanted to say thank you for coming along this journey and this little slice of life outside of a pretty insane year. And I'm just very grateful to have you guys here as we reach the end of the year, as we almost reach 1 million subscribers here on the channel. So again, thank you so much. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.